Hi. Yeah, so we were, I guess, hoping to hear, I guess, what the plans are for folks down at Tent City ahead of the snow. I heard that there was about 12 people down there as of today that are planning to be out there tonight.
Sure. Myself, and as Minister Abbott alluded to in the House of Assembly today, visited the tent encampment this morning at 10 o'clock. I had planned to go there at some point. I mean, I've been sworn in for just a week now and had planned to go there, but in light of the storm coming, we decided to go down this morning to make sure. Minister Abbott has been there many times in the past. What we wanted to do was to ensure that everybody down there who was at the tent encampment knew that they did not have to be there, that there are options available. Our warming center at Safe Haven on Lamargent Road is open and ready to take people there. And there's spaces there for about 30. I think about 8 were used last night. The gathering place is also there. Our emergency shelter line is really the first point of contact. We wanted to make sure we spoke to everybody who was in tents at the time. Some came out, some just stayed inside, and we chatted through the tent to make sure that they knew that there were options available. I've spoken very closely over the last couple of days, and more so last night, late into the night, and this morning, with folks at Newfoundland and Labrador Housing Corporation to make sure that an emphasis was put on this. And I want to be clear that it's done every day. Everybody at the tent encampment or anyone who calls the emergency shelter line are given options. Nobody has to be in a tent tonight. We will find something for them, somewhere to go.
So some folks now, I guess, have been moved into the Comfort Inn, but my understanding is none of the folks who are at Tent City are there. Have they been offered a place at this new facility?
No, that is correct. There are some people at the Comfort Inn, and they were there before the agreement was signed with the owners. And the wraparound supports that we're negotiating and trying to, finalize with our community partners through folks like End Homelessness St. John's. We're still trying to work out the fine details. The supports that will be needed are not in place at the Comfort Inn, but the people who are already there did not need the same supports. So it's not just if you're homeless, you can show up at the Comfort Inn and check in. That's not the way it goes. You have to go through the emergency shelter line, first of all. That's the first point of contact. Once they're there, then they get in the housing continuum of where they would go. And our coordinated access table, which is a best practice recognized from across Canada. Folks in our community partners are at that table, and they help determine where a certain person, given their unique circumstances, would end up. Would it be in the hotel, possibly, once it's up and running and our supports are there? Or would it be in a shelter situation? Or if something through Newfoundland and Labrador Housing is available, would they go there? There are many, it isn't just one size fits all. There are, because of all the unique aspects of everyone's needs, it has to be addressed that way. And that's why that one stream, you can't just be all over the place. They have to go in through the emergency intake.
Before Christmas, there was a commitment made by government that all those people would be in a home, in a house, I guess, by Christmas. I understand, of course, you weren't the minister then, but
correct.
What's your understanding of why that hasn't happened?
So there is a sort of, I don't know exactly who was down there right before Christmas, but I know that just for example today, and without revealing any names, we spoke with 2 gentlemen who arrived there on Monday. They have been in the province for a while, and we gave them a number so that they can call so that they can become part of the system, the emergency intake. So people are coming and going, but the tent encampment is not the intake site. That's not where you go so that you can skip ahead of the line or automatically get placed. There is a process, and there are people who have been on waiting lists. And depending on severity, there are priorities which are taken depending on what your personal situation is. And so that's the process of getting people supportive transitional housing, which is what we're going to offer at the Comfort Inn. So some of the people who are at the tent encampment may have been there before. I know that folks at Newfoundland and Labrador Housing Corporation are in contact with individuals. They know their names, they know the social workers or what community partners they're attached to, and they deal with them on a daily basis. Some are perhaps, and I'll just use hypothetically, attached to the gathering place, or Stella's Circle, or Safe Haven, or the Naomi Center, or Iris Kirby, some depending on the individual, and they track those individuals to make sure that they're followed up on a daily basis.
Mr. Hutton, people are still becoming homeless every week. When I was down to Tent City in November, I interviewed a woman who was told by a judge that she had to maintain housing for a year in order to be able to keep custody of her child. Her landlord jacked up her rent more than she could afford, put her out on the streets. She had to give her child up for adoption. Do you support rent control and getting rid of no-fault evictions, and will you pass legislation soon?
It is something that I would certainly look at, but what I would like more so is for you to perhaps supply that person's name if you've been in contact with me. And I don't mean in this venue, but I would like to find out more about that individual case. I'm not going to discuss an individual case with somebody unless they would have given me permission to, but I would like to be able to make sure that she's been contacted by the proper folks.
We're talking about provincial legislation, not just one individual. I was just giving an example.
You're using that as an example. So my primary focus, when you tell me that, is that I would like to be able to speak to that person.
Folks in Tent City said that they wanted to be addressed directly when you were giving a response, and Minister Abbott was earlier. What do you say to them about housing as a human right? Do you now believe that housing is a human right?
Look, what we're focused on and what I've been focused on in the first week of my tenure as the Minister of Housing is getting up to speed on all the issues related to housing in Newfoundland and Labrador. It is a very complex issue. And if anybody thinks that there's a simple solution to this, they're wrong. There's not. And every individual, as I just pointed out to Mark and to Bailey, every individual case is unique. The UN Convention already signed by Canada means that we are covered by that. Our Human Rights Act already shows that we prevent people from being discriminated against for renting, for example. So it's something we're going to be continually looking at, but our focus, my primary focus right now, is making sure, and I will say today, just because there's a big storm coming, that everybody knows that nobody has to stay outdoors tonight or sleep in a tent. And the 1-800 number, or the 188 number, which I hope your organizations will help promote, is for people who may know somebody at the tent encampment, or not in the tent encampment, anyone watching across Newfoundland and Labrador, because it's not unique just to St. John's. The issues are in Central, the issues are on the West Coast, the Southwest Coast, the Northern Peninsula, and in Labrador. We know that. That is our primary focus right now.
Other human rights experts, though, say that when policy is developed related to housing through a human rights lens, it's often stronger. We don't even have rent control. We don't, other jurisdictions do. So in order to view legislation through a human rights lens, you would have to believe that housing is a human right first.
It's impossible to remove the human aspect from it. Look, I would like to believe, and I think I'm right, when everybody in this room, everybody in that House of Assembly, nobody wants to see anyone homeless. The primary focus right now, I've been on this job for 1 week, that is something I will look at. But right now, my focus is getting up to speed on the number of people who are homeless and trying to make sure that first and foremost, they are given somewhere to stay and they are told. During this period of with a storm coming, we've been in contact with End Homelessness St. John's and our other community partners, but mainly through Doug, who coordinates it all, Doug Bosson, to make sure that we do extra checks today as the storm begins to make sure that people know this, that they have options, and options are made available to them each and every day, but more so today. Some told us today that they were going to stay and ride out the storm. So what we've decided to do as well, to make sure that they're checked on regularly, because this is supposed to be a prolonged system. And we want to make sure that if at 10 o'clock tonight somebody decides that, no, I think I would like to leave, there's an option there. There's taxis available to take them to the warming shelter, at Safe Haven or a gathering place. And at that point, they begin the point of entry into the emergency shelter line. And then our coordinated access table works with people to figure out where they're going to end up for the night. But nobody has to be outside tonight. And I absolutely wish that everyone will actually take us up on the offer to go somewhere.
Will you advocate to enshrine housing as a human right in the Human Rights Act here in our own provincial legislation? And to your understanding, if you don't enshrine housing as a human right, do you expect the feds to hold back funding for the province as per the Federal Housing Advocate's recommendation in her latest report?
I did not get a chance to speak to the federal minister. I'm not worried about that at this point in time. As I said to Justin and others today, my focus primarily right now is today, making sure that everyone is safe tonight and they have somewhere warm to stay, and that there's food provided to them, and that the options are available. And we're going to make sure that each and every person who presents or we encounter is given that option.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks. Stay safe, everyone. Have a good weekend.